So, okay. We have to, today, before we uh, go into the intellectual center, now the second thing most easy to observe is the intellectual center, because it is the slowest of all the centers. It works very slowly. And the brain works digitally, so it's after the moving center, it is the most easy center to observe. Now we have to understand the intellectual center, we have to go back 2,500 years, and where a major turning point in man's, what you call, growth, his evolution in his culture, right? And that is the time where it was the time of Aristotle. So in those days in Greece, there were two, what do you call, schools, what we call as ashrams. And one, the guru was Aristotle, and one, the guru was a person called Heracles. And Aristotle used to expound a, what do you call, way of living, a way of inner, inner growth, which he would say that man is in jail, right? So man is asleep, he's in the jail of sleep. We saw that yesterday. And to escape from jail, right, to escape from the state of sleep, he has to take the help of someone who has already escaped. Means that man cannot get out of his condition without the help of a teacher or without the help of a guru. And so it also implies that Aristotle is the guru and you have to follow him. Now, just nearby where Aristotle had his school, there was another school, the school of Heraclitus. And Heraclitus had a saying that you cannot step in the same river twice, right? So that is the basic saying of Heraclitus. And so if someone has experienced what you call moving out of the jail, right, waking up from the dream of life, then his experience is of no use to us because the water has flown, right? And it's not the same water, right? So you cannot use the help of anybody. You have to work on your own and what do you call, get free from this, because the old experience is water which has flown down the bridge, right? Of course, the Indian schools at that time mainly said that you need an outer teacher for some time, right? And then once the inner teacher catches your hand, then you leave the outer teacher and you move with the inner teacher. And that was a sort of what you call balancing of the two schools, right? But mankind as a whole, that is our civilization as a whole, decided to follow Aristotle, right? And Aristotle was the creator of logic, the creator of the techniques of thinking, right? So, and all the progress which man has made after that, the scientific progress, if we add to it the cultural progress or not, right, is a result of Aristotle's logic. Aristotle's logic. So mankind at that stage in their development, 2,500 years ago, took a very, very big decision, and as a whole man followed what you call Aristotle. Nobody followed Heraclitus. So today we are going to talk about the intellectual center. It is the intellectual center which is still evolving. It is still evolving. Man's brain is still evolving, right? So we can't say that the brain of, say, 100 years ago is the same brain which man has today, or we can't even say that the brain of 50 years ago is the same brain which man has today. New cells have opened up in the brain, uh, new, what do you call, potentialities have opened up in the brain, and so that has to be taken into account. So when Mr. Tauria made these exercises, these refining exercises, he had this in his background, that all the yoga techniques which we are doing, from pranayams to what you call asanas and everything, they are more than 2000 years old, and everything needs a revamp now in light of today's brain, because so many pranayams are dangerous in the sense that they destroy the very finer brain cells which are responsible for man's intelligence, right? And similar with the yoga asanas and all that. So now the intellectual center being the, what do you call, most active of all the other centers. So we have to understand its working, and it's going to be very difficult in the sense that to understand what is the meaning of intellectual understanding and real understanding, right? So we'll just take it in general, that this center works with words, right? It works with words, and words give us a false understanding that I have understood something, right? So I look at a flower and I say rose flower, right? So because I've been able to identify the species of flower, I think I've understood the flower. Or maybe I have studied a little bit of botany, and I can say that the flower, what do you call, has this kind of pollen, and this is the structure of the flower, etc. But is that an existential understanding of the flower, or is it just an intellectual understanding? And so because of the development of the lopsided development of the intellectual center, right, over 2,500 years, man, because he intellectually knows something, right? He feels he understands, right? So this center works with words, and normally when we use the word intelligence, right, we mean the intellectual mechanism of thinking, reasoning, logic, right? And for a person walking on the spiritual path, he has to understand that there is an intellectual understanding and there is an understanding through intelligence. And intelligence begins where once we are able to see the what we call the cracks or the failures in intellectual thinking, right? So this creates a kind of maya. So everybody knows everything because they have filled their brain with words, their minds with words, and because of that everybody feels they know everything while really we know nothing. That is the thing. So real intelligence is something very different from logic and reasoning. Now, when we are very young, certain pathways are laid down in the brain, right? And those pathways become fixed habits. And we have fixed habits of thinking, even though we don't realize it, right? And everything that happens in life just goes along the same pathways, right? And we feel we are thinking, whilst in the whole day we've not had a single thought which we have thought ourselves. Everything has been information gathered from somewhere else. Not a single original thought do we have throughout the day. Now, what is freedom? So these pathways in the brain, or we can, if we are talking about yoga, we can say pathways in the chitta, right? They are fixed pathways in which the information from the five senses goes in, and at the end of those pathways there is a fixed definition for everything, there is a fixed meaning for everything, and all that is laid down automatically, and that is how we live our life, right? So he says something, it goes along a fixed pathway, and it is automatically interpreted that he has insulted me. Can you get it? Right. Now that is a fixed pathway. Now if I say someone talking to you in the same way, I'll say, look, he is insulting that person. But the same impression which came in could have multiple meanings. Could have multiple meanings. Now, if I'm sensing the impression in a different way, then I'll say, he's a little ill, that is why he's saying this. He's a little irritated, that is why he's saying this. He had a fight with his wife, that is why he's saying this. Can you see? Then I'm not interpreting it as a, what do you call, insult. I've changed the pathway. I've changed the pathway. So in yoga, we learn to change the pathways, right? And if mind moves along the same mechanical pathways throughout our lives, then really we have not changed anything. Now I can take a higher meaning out of it, that I want to observe my ego, but my ego is invisible, and because he has insulted me, my ego has shown its form for a little while. Can I observe that ego and be free of that ego? Now I've taken an even higher meaning out of that same thing which was what do you call, shown as an insult. So our being is like a building. Our being is like a building. Yeah. And it has different floors, and at any moment in time when we are relating to life, which floor are we relating from? Can you see? If I'm negative with him, if I'm reacting with him, then I'm definitely relating from a lower floor, right? If I understand him, if there is sympathy towards him, I'm relating from a higher floor, right? So it is up to us. Now, the movement from a lower floor to a higher floor is the movement of consciousness, is the movement of consciousness, right? So consciousness is not something that you do in your meditation or do in your prayers or whatever. It is every moment in life, every moment in life, right? Now, you know, in the intellectual center, over years has what you call gained a kind of, acquired a kind of superiority complex. It feels that it is more intelligent than the other three centers, right? Now, you take this, that the mind is a room, right? And which there are 4 parts in that room, 4 bedrooms. So one is the intellectual center, one is the emotional center, one is the sensing center, and one is the moving center. Each of them, they are all 4 brothers. They're supposed to live in harmony and peace and what you call, right? But they don't understand each other's language, right? And we are always anchored in one center. We are always anchored in one center, right? Now, and in all these 4, the intellectual always feels it is superior, so its decision must hold on the others. because we have not developed the other brains, the sensing brain and the feeling brain, they've been overpowered for the last 2,500 years by the intellectual center. They are not working to their potentiality, right? So they are kind of in a state of suspension, right? So these four brothers live in one flat. They have to share the same kitchen and same everything, and they have to relate to life. We relate to life through these four brothers, and they are always fighting amongst themselves. Now, what would be truth? What would be truth? Say the husband and wife, right? Now, say the husband is anchored in the intellectual center and the wife is anchored in the emotional center, right? And each looks out of the window. The husband will say it's a sunny day. The wife will say, no, it's going to rain today. Right? Now, how are they going to live together, right? Unless the other understands that she is anchored over here and I am anchored over here, then there is an effort to understand where the other person is coming from. So when we look at truth, truth is a collage, right? Intellectual, emotional, sensing, moving. It is a whole collage. All four, when we paste together, then we know what truth is. But we look at the flower, we say this is a rose flower. We are seeing it from only one part of the mind. The other three are in suspension, not working. And we say this is the truth, this is a rose, it's written in the book, and that's all there is about it. Can you see? So that is why man has become a what you call slave of words. He's become a slave of words, and he doesn't even know that there is a thinking beyond words, that you can think without words. And words in the whole evolutionary ladder is the last thing which has come. No animal speaks language, right? And man has been the last, what you call, person to come on the evolutionary ladder. So the capacity to let something stand for something, whether it is a symbol, whether it is a word, right? That is the what you call function of the intellectual center, the function of the intellectual center. And this has become a disease. It's become a disease, right? So if I'm sitting in the garden looking at the rose flower, and if I can hold just my looking without the words coming in and just sense the flower, right? Then suddenly the understanding of the flower would change completely. Now, we must understand that human beings in this cultural, what you call, evolution, what we call, they love symbols. They love symbols. And they get very attached to symbols. Word is a symbol. Word is a symbol. So supposing a car, right? So I was asking one person a few months ago, he said, I'm buying a new car. So I said, just buy a good, comfortable car. Why do you want to buy such a big luxury car? He says, you don't understand that I'm in this business, and if I go in that, what you call, ordinary car, I'm not going to get what you call work. And so that if he goes in that car, it has a symbol. Whether he's intelligent in his work or not is a different matter. Can you understand what I'm trying to say? I'm talking about 1984, that is 40 years ago, right? I was at the Osho ashram. So how to stay in America? Then you marry an American girl and you stay in America. So I went to a lawyer and to arrange. You have to get a marriage license and all that stuff, which I didn't know. You have to have a blood test. I don't know whether you have it these days. In those days, you had to have a blood test and all that. So the lawyer is telling me that why are you doing all this? These American people are going to kick out your guru, right? So I said, why are they going to kick him out? He said, not for anything else, but because he has 90 Rolls Royces. Right? The American people cannot stand anyone having a better car than them. Right? And in 1 year, they of course threw him out. Right? So, what I'm trying to say is that man lives by symbols, and these symbols mean something to him. Now, just as we said yesterday, the intellectual center has a positive and negative side. What will be in the positive side and what will be in the negative side? Just 2 words. Just 2 words. What will be in the positive and what will be in the negative? Yes and no. Right? Affirmation and negation. Right? Yes and no. Now, supposing we've learned this much only, how can we bring in a little bit of consciousness into the working of the intellectual center? We've learned this much, that it has a positive and negative side, and the positive side is yes and the negative side is no.
So anything my mind automatically says no to, pause and see why it's saying no to it, and maybe consider a yes.
Yeah, excellent. So, where I'm going to say no, can I pause there, bring in consciousness, right? And try to say no in a different way. Try to say no in a different way. You get it?
Yes, yes.
And just by doing that, I bring consciousness into the working of the intellectual center. Which famous novel or movie? Which famous movie?
Godfather.
Godfather. The Godfather, right? So, now, is life really yes or no? Or is it always in between? Right? Can truth be yes or can truth be no? It's not possible. Truth has to be yes and no at the same time. So, the lower mind thinks in terms of yes and no. The higher mind, as the higher faculties of thinking start opening within us, we think in terms of yes and no. Yes and no, right? So we say it is day and therefore it is not night. So day is yes and night is no. But actually it is something which is changing all the time, right? So it is day night then becomes one thing, right? Day night becomes one thing. Similarly in life, wherever we want to give clear cut answers, can we just pause at that time? Pause at that time. And that is why it's a person who really works with the intellectual center, it is sometimes very difficult to understand him. I don't know if any of you have heard of Madhav Bhai Desai. Madhav Desai, he wrote some beautiful prison diaries when he was in prison with Mahatma Gandhi and Sardar Patel. So one of the incidents was very nice, and somebody came in the afternoon, and he was a worker of the Congress party in those days. And he's asking, okay, he wants to meet Gandhiji. And they were in the same room, Vallabhbhai and Gandhiji, right, in jail. So Gandhiji was sleeping. So Vallabhbhai says that he's sleeping. Why don't you ask me the question, what you want to ask? So that fellow says, I want to ask him. So then Vallabhbhai in his slang language, he said in Gujarati, right, to that person, must have been a Gujarati, કે એ વાણિયાને પૂછીશ તો લટકતો જવાબ મળશે, અરે you want a proper answer, then you better ask me. Right? So, everybody understood? I don't know. Yeah. Okay. So where you go to a person where the higher thinking has, what do you call, developed, then it's very difficult to get a fixed answer from that person. Very difficult to get a fixed answer. But he will open out all the, what do you call, possibilities. He will open out all the possibilities. But in the end, you'll wonder whether he answered your question or did not answer your question. Right? So, even in society, we feel the intellectual center has the right to decide everything for us. Now, what is the basic component of thought? What is the basic component of thought?
Memory.
No thought can be done without memory, but to start thinking, to start the making of a thought, what do I need?
Comparison. Comparison.
Incoming impulse comes, it makes the thought, but how do I create the thought? What is the basic necessity to create the thought?
Comparison.
Comparison, right? If you see, no thought can be made without comparison. And because we are comparing with something, there's always memory involved. Always memory involved, right? So, when we say yes and no, it is not possible without comparison, right? Not possible without comparison. Now, and this is something which we do, we compare one proposal to another proposal, one proposition to another proposition. And comparison requires a choice. Comparison always requires a choice. What to say yes to and what to say no to. So, now can we change our, what do you call, we can't create a thought without comparison. So we have to use comparison. But we want to move from a lower form of thinking to a higher form of thinking. And we can change some things where the comparison is just necessary to start the thought, and then we move from comparison to something called relativity, right? So now this is difficult, right? So I'll say a rose flower is better than what you call jasmine flower, right? So there's comparison. But to differentiate between a rose flower and a jasmine flower, right? I need comparison, that this is a rose and this is jasmine, right? But then I don't need comparison to go higher. I say rose fulfills these properties in the, what we call, relativity of life, right? In the relative relationship of life. And jasmine, what we call, fulfills these properties in the relativity of life. And if you are in a state of, what do you call, sensitivity, deep sense, you're not looking at the flower through words. You're not looking at the flower through the intellectual center. If you're in a state of deep sensitivity, you will see that the effect of the perfume of a rose has a different effect on the mind, and the effect of the perfume of jasmine has a different effect on the mind, right? So then suddenly you'll see the relative properties of rose and jasmine. So you can move to a higher form of thinking, but to initiate the thought, you need to compare. Without comparison, the thought cannot be made. So all reasoning requires comparison, all reasoning requires choice, all reasoning requires the ability to say yes and no. Now, how to bring these two parts? Because these two parts together, and this is very important in the sense that we are moving from duality to non-duality, right? How to bring them together, and that is a very, very, what do you call, uh, uh, something which we have to work upon and develop to, so then life will not have set answers. Each moment will have a different answer. Whose life, yeah?
I'm not sure when you say
Why don't you come here? No,
come,
the rocking chair.
wrong. Sure. So when you're saying that as you move from lower consciousness to a higher consciousness,
From a lower form of thinking to a higher form
to a
of thinking.
higher form of thinking, the clarity that usually comes, that
Yes.
is not there or is there? Where does clarity comes into in terms of, because
So if you go to ask such a person, you won't get proper clarity. That is what I'm trying to say.
so with higher conscience, the clarity becomes vague, is what you're
It becomes
saying.
vague. But in another sense, the clarity becomes open.
Because, and again, this is, I mean, I may not have an answer to anything, but if I come to somebody like you, then you'll be like, okay, no, this is the right way of going about it. So that means you have some form of clarity with that higher consciousness, right? Or higher way of thinking. So am I?
Yeah, but if you were to ask me what I see, I would put 100 things around the table and tell you to decide.
Right, but you'll still have you will know exactly, I mean, you may not discuss it with me, but you as a person will know, like, okay, this would be the right way of doing about it, right? So isn't that clarity?
That is clarity, but it's still I have to come down to a what do you call logical thinking to do that.
I see.
Yeah, you understand?
Yeah,
But there is a form of thinking which is non-logical,
right.
right?
Okay.
We only start with logic where we compare one about the other.
Okay.
But you have to understand that clarity can mean many things.
Mm.
Clarity can mean many things. So, supposing you're asking a question about money, right? Now, if you ask somebody else, he may tell you the right way to earn more money. But, right? When I look at your question, I will not look at just the money aspect. I will look at your aspect on the journey to consciousness.
Right.
So when my answer comes, that will, what do you call, be a major part of the answer. I don't know if you're understanding it.
Yeah. Okay, makes sense.
See, spent many years with Bhagwan, right? I knew him from 1974.
Okay.
So, two people have a divorce,
Yeah.
right? And what do you call, this girl goes to Bhagwan, that,
Okay.
and he says, so much money my husband has given me for that.
Yeah.
Now, if he's seeing money is going to be a problem for her growth in consciousness,
Okay.
can you see?
Yeah.
He told her that you will go and give back all that money to your husband,
Yeah. Okay.
which she did,
Okay.
which she did.
Okay.
Now, after 5 years, she's in all kinds of financial problems.
Oh.
So she comes to me. I said, at that time, you should have asked me.
Yeah.
Can you understand?
Yeah.
He would have only looked at your journey towards consciousness.
Right.
Whilst when I answer somebody, I look at the journey towards consciousness, but also that it should not upset their normal living also.
Living. Okay.
But I won't give you an answer where you'll only get more money and nothing else.
I see.
Can you get so many things open up,
Right.
right? So my first aim will be you rise in maturity, you rise in consciousness. That would be my first aim.
I see. Okay. Okay, thanks. या उधर भी और भी लोग हैं उनके साथ।
So, I hope you don't mind. We are continuing from yesterday. So, I hope you don't mind. Now, what is an association? What is an association? In the process of thinking, what is an association?
Something my mind is automatically associated with.
Yeah, it is, but where does the association come from? Memory. It comes from memory, right? So, an impression comes in to the mind, right? And then that impression gets attached to an association, and that association takes it along a pathway in the mind, or you can say a pathway in the brain, right? And where it is given a meaning, where it is given a meaning. So these pathways or associations are already fixed, and most of them get fixed when we are very young, which we call as attitudes. We call as attitudes, right? So when we find new meaning, we are changing these associations. You understand? So, say we take Vivekananda. That Vivekananda has a very famous statement that the rain was falling, but the rain fell in the field, right? And the field was so dry it gave life to the seed which was sown. So the rain associated with new life, right? The rain was falling, my overhead tank was empty, so the rain fell into my overhead tank and I had enough water to have a bath and what, etc. So the rain associated with the overhead tank gave me water to clean myself, drink water, etc. But the rain water fell, but it went directly into the gutter. Can you understand? Right? So something is coming into the mind each moment, and it meets something called an association, which gives it meaning. It takes it to a certain area which gives it meaning, right? So again we come to the same, we'll take the same example, right? He treats me badly, he insults me, right? Now that impression is coming in, where does it associate? Where does it associate? Right? So if it associates with the negative part of the emotional center, can you see, if it is taken by that association into the negative part of the, we've not yet come to the emotional center, right? If it is taken there, I am going to react with him, I am going to give it back to him, right? And that is an automatic reaction which has happened due to that association. Now, if I can change that association, right? He treated me badly, he insulted me, but it goes to the intellectual center instead, right? And the intellectual center now looks at it in perspective, looks at it in scale, right? That what would be the reason for him acting in this way, right? Is he little ill? Is he psychologically this? Or can you see what I'm trying to say? And we bring a pause and we bring consciousness to the situation. So if it goes to the negative part of the emotion where we react all the time, then it has gone, the rain has fallen in the gutter. The rain has fallen in the gutter. But if I'm able to bring new meaning and new consciousness, then the rain has fallen in the field and given new life, regeneration, right? So each moment in life we are bombarded by impressions through the five senses. Where do those impressions go? And those impressions are, they immediately latch onto an association and they go somewhere. And this whole process we have to first of all understand with our intellectual center, this intellectual center. Now this is, yeah.
So,
Through the journey, are associations part of the journey the whole way, or is there a point where the associations decrease? Because you can't ever get rid of memory, right? Like you can stop operating from memory, or decrease operation from memory.
Is there a single second in the day when you're not a slave of memory?
No.
Huh?
Right.
Right. So if all 24 hours, if we are a slave of memory, then where is the present moment?
We're not in it.
So how do we come to the present moment?
By sensing the I.
Sensitivity is the key to come to the present moment, right? It is the key. It is the only key to come to the present moment. But can you give me a description of certain instances when we are in the present moment?
So if I'm really enjoying music.
Right. Music is one. So in enjoying the music, which are the present moments?
The parts where time almost seems to stop, and you're really enjoying.
Yeah, but what happens? What happens? Supposing you've gone to hear a sitar recital, right? And in certain moments, what happens?
It's like a climax is reached.
Right? But what happens in that moment? What do you do in that moment? You get it? You can't stop yourself.
Yeah.
Right? Why has that aha come? Has it come because of the music, or is the music just the instrumental cause? Or was that aha lying within you?
Yes. Yeah.
Tell me.
The aha was always lying in me, but I came into the
So
present
what
moment.
happened to cause that aha? What happened to cause that aha? And those are the few moments when we come into the, what do you call, present moment, right? But we can't hold it there, we are out the next moment, right?
Yeah.
It's just that fraction of a second we are in the present moment. And it could happen anywhere. It could happen anywhere. You're reading a detective novel, right? And suddenly you see the key to the mystery, right? And that has not come from logic. It has come from a different kind of, and in a moment there is, aha, I've solved it, right? But then that aha goes away, right? Otherwise, we are always in thought. That is one moment when we are not in thought, right? We are not in thought. And because thought is memory, thought can never, what you call, encounter the present moment, right? We have encountered the present moment. We've lived the present moment. Now, what has happened in relation to your question of what do you call associations?
Yeah, I mean, there was no comparison to prior music. There's no thought.
Yeah, that is there. Now, in relation to your question, you answer your own question of association.
So yes, if you come into the present moment, then
There is
the
no-
association can drop.
There is
Yeah,
no
there's
association. There is no association.
Correct. Okay.
Because an association is memory.
Yeah.
Can you get it?
Yes.
Then what has happened to that impression which has gone inside?
Oh, well, now it didn't
now
go through
we'll
memory.
take this another way.
Ah.
I'll repeat something because more people have come here, and something which I said yesterday, so I hope you don't mind. Yesterday we said that when a child is born, right, all the impressions go directly to the soul, to the soul. It is the soul which takes birth, which is the soul which seeks a mother and father, right? Now, around 5 years, the ego is made. So the ego forms at around 5 years, right? And then the ego takes over from the soul. So all the experiences of life go to the ego. And the ego is thought. The ego is thought, right? So now, in that moment where you are listening to the music and you said, aha, what happened in that moment?
Yeah, just in that moment, the impression went to the soul.
For
It
that,
didn't-
the impression went to the
Soul.
soul, which was sleeping for so many years.
Yeah.
Can you understand?
Yeah.
But because you went to that music concert, in that one moment, that ego dissolved in that moment, and the impression went directly to the soul, and the soul has taken birth to get impressions, right? And there is a feeling of aha, right? So, whenever an impression comes in, and the impression does not have a association, then it does not go to a ready-made meaning inside,
Right.
right? It does not go to a ready-made meaning inside. It goes directly to the center.
And when that happens, there is a feeling of joy, of ecstasy that happens, which usually cannot be felt
Yeah.
when you're not in the present moment, when you're operating through memory or thought. Is that, yes?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So that is because in the present moment, the ego cannot work. It has to go into suppression, suspension, excuse me. And there is no thought, because the minute there's thought, there is no present moment. You can't think that I want to be in the present moment,
Right.
right? And in that moment, the impression, it does not is not attached to any association. It goes directly to the center inside, and there's a what do you call totally different understanding of the impression. And then life, each moment in life, as you put the ego on the side, each moment in life will give you a feeling of aha. Can you understand?
Yeah.
Right? The meaning, the feeling of life. Then there is tremendous joy in life, tremendous joy in living, right? Because there is no what you call interference of the past in the present. Okay. You understand, right? So that is what we are coming to. That is what we are coming to. So that is one exercise which we can do, and that is to use the word no in a different way. To use the word no in a different way. And one of the, to bring in the emotional center at that time, that by saying no to her, am I hurting her? Am I hurting her? So, I mean, we are moving from violence to non-violence, right? So, can it be said in a different way? And for that, I have to bring in consciousness. I have to use my intellectual center. We go deeper into the intellectual center, and I have to say it in a different way. Which other word can we also work upon? Very important, but it's not a part of this intellectual center, but because through association I brought it here. So which other word?
I don't like it. Sorry. Sorry can be.
I. I. The word I. Right? So, how do I use the word I? Right? First of all, can I, wherever it is not necessary, not use I? And it immediately associates inside, right? Can you see?
Yes.
So, and then I become a slave to memory. I become a slave to memory. So you say, I went to see the Taj Mahal. And I immediately associate, I went 6 years ago to see the Taj Mahal. I pause over there. Now, that has no meaning in the conversation. Can you see? It has absolutely no meaning in the conversation. All I'm saying is that I've also done it, which is an attitude that I am better than you, right? Which I'm not observing. Right? So, can we, what you call, bring a ration on the use of the word I? Right. Now, I'll just share with you, I'm not asking you all to do it, something which my guru made me do, right? And this was in around 1992. So, he said for 6 months, don't take anything personally. Don't take anything personally. Now, it so happened that he told me this day, and my son was 6, 7 months old, or 8 months old, I don't remember. And my wife called me at night. I was in Bombay because my guru was in Bombay. And she said that he is ill. Why don't you come home for a few days? Right? So next morning I went to him. I said, my son is ill. My wife has called me, and he said, I told you not to take anything personally. Whose son are you talking about? There's nothing like my son. Now this is bitter medicine. Can you understand? It's bitter medicine, right? Who is your wife? Where is your home? Where is your car? Where is your shirt? Can you understand? Don't take anything personally. Now you want to dissolve the ego, and dissolving the ego is tremendous suffering. Tremendous suffering. Intellectually we understand everything, right? But when you come down to it, it's hard work, right? So, but I'm not asking you all to go into anything like that, but you can still put a ration on the word I, right? And that you have to bring in consciousness. You have to bring, so he'll ask me, will you come to my home? And immediately the associate paper, I cannot come, I do not have the time. Pause. Now, can we say the same thing without using the word I? Right?
Sure.
Would like to come. If time, what do you call, favors, then I would definitely come, or will come. I don't use the word I. Okay? And if we practice that for 6 months, then we have, what do you call, done a lot of work with our ego.
Yeah.
Because the ego is everything personal. Everything personal. Right? And in spirituality, there's nothing personal. There's nothing personal. Right? So if we can just do that one experiment, so 2 words which we can, where we say no and where we use the word I. Use the word I. Now, the lower part of the intellectual center, it always takes things in yes and no, good or bad. And when we move to the higher part, there is something which is third, which is not yes, which is not no, and brings them together. So our whole process of thinking changes. The whole process of thinking changes. I'll just try to give you another. This is in yoga, we call this as vivek, the capacity to discriminate, the capacity to discriminate. I'll just give a simple example that can we have a dual form of thinking, right? To see the duality of life, to experience the duality of life. So, I say I fall in love with a girl, right? And when there's new love, everything is of course lovey-dovey and very nice and all that. So, and I think this is going to last forever, right? What am I blind to? What am I blind to?
Her dark side.
Her dark side, the other side, right? What I can see is only the side which she has shown to me. But if I have a dual form of thinking, I'll see that everything which is in this side is balanced by something in the other side, because life is duality. Can you understand? We go to a temple to pray. Do we go to a temple to pray for happiness or suffering? What do we go?
Happiness.
Huh? Why do we do our puja? For happiness or suffering?
Happiness.
But poor old God, he has said, I cannot give you happiness, right? If you want happiness, you got to take suffering also. Can you understand? Because the law he made when he started the game of cards was the law of duality. So everybody is going in for happiness. What are they going to get? Suffering. They are going to get suffering. Can you understand? It is not possible to give one. It is not possible to give one, right? If you take one, you have to take the other, right? So similarly, I fall in love with a girl, I see only one side of her. But if I had a dual thinking, I would say this side is balanced by something in the other side. And as we live together, I suddenly see the other side coming in and the side which I saw going into the dark side. And I say nothing has changed. I already knew it from the beginning. Can you understand? Right? And that is Vivek, the power to see two at the same time, the power to see the duality of life. In yoga, we call it as Vivek, the power of discrimination. In English, we use the word conscience. Conscience. Okay, now we'll go to the three parts of the intellectual center. First is the lowest, the most mechanical part, the Jack of Diamonds. The Jack of Diamonds. So intellectual center is diamonds, right? And the Jack of Diamonds, the most mechanical part of the inner. All memory is registered in the Jack. All memory is registered in the Jack, right? So, but this part of the intellectual center never works properly. It takes over the work of the other two parts. It is not supposed to think, but it starts thinking. It's not supposed to make a decision, but it makes decisions. Can you see? Now, unfortunately, it is always deciding and replying to questions, right? And this is very important for our growth, because when you meet a person, you see, are his answers coming from the Jack? Are his answers coming from the Queen, or are his answers coming from the King? Can you get what I'm trying to say? Yeah. So, what was the first thing in the Jack we saw yesterday? Repetition. It repeats the same behavior every day. It is a fixed part in our center of gravity, and it is like the inner secretary. It has to take down what comes inside, arrange it, and put it in a proper order. It is a filing cabinet or whatever. And a lot of information is stored over here in the Jack of Diamonds. Now, sometimes in very simple people also you see this very active, that they have a whole library of answers to everything. Right? They have a whole library of answers to everything. Right? And we take it as wisdom. We take it as wisdom. Now, thank you. So in a way, in today's world, this is a very, what you call, appreciated card. Very appreciated card, because every time the boss asks a question, he can give an answer, right? And it has a whole library of one-liners. Can you see? It has a whole library of one-liners. So supposing you buy orange juice for $2 somewhere, and from somewhere else you buy it for $1.50. So immediately the jack will say, a dollar saved is a dollar earned. Can you understand what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
It has a whole library of one-liners. And sometimes you meet people who only talk in one-liners. Only talk in. That is, they are what do you call, living life from the most mechanical part of the intellectual center. So this is something which we must observe when other people are thinking, talking, especially when you observe people arguing, when they are in debates, right? When they are exchanging what we call so-called conventional wisdom, right? And in our life, what the Jack says passes for thinking. We don't know thinking of any other kind. Thinking of any other kind. And you see it here in America all the time, as if life is just the Jack of diamonds. You know, you go to give your ticket at the airport, good morning, how is your day going on? You know, all these one-liners come out and it's all automatic and this thing. There is no consciousness over there. Can you see? Right? Sometimes the what do you call the mental valve on the Jack of diamonds, it, like the heart valve stops working or the digestion valve stops working, it stops working. And those people then, they are looking for people where they can start, they open the valve of the Jack of diamonds and start saying everything that is recorded inside, and they want somebody to listen to their sorrows or whatever, right? Now, facts, information, opinions, moral rules, all this is stored in the Jack of diamonds. Now, one of its strongest mechanical reactions, it always takes the opposite stance. It always takes the opposite stance. So if you say this person will win the election, I'll say no, this person will win the election. I'll always take the opposite stance, right? So one of the things where when we enter into a conversation with someone, right? And the first thing where we bring in consciousness, I don't want to say anything that opposes what he says, right? Let me walk with him for some time. Let me walk with him. Now, every conversation is like a painting. Is like a painting. But if he throws in one color and I don't throw in another color, I say, no, I don't like this, then there can be no painting, then the conversation just ends over there. Then we've not really created a work of art, right? So every conversation is like a painting, it is a work of art, and the first thing we must do, not to oppose the other, not to take, because mechanically we take the opposite stance. So don't respond to somebody's yes with a no. Don't respond to somebody's yes with a no. One of the deeply embedded attitudes in every human being is to prove the other person wrong. He gets a kind of enjoyment when he proves the other person wrong. The ego, the ego gets a kind of rush, what they call, in proving the other person wrong. Normally, these are the people who we think are very intelligent people because they have a whole library of facts, and from the library they can bring out something, and we don't realize it. They have nothing which is original, everything is copied. So if you ask them, they know everything, right? And if you say, I bought this, what do you call, medicine today, they'll know exactly how many doses you have to take and what to take, and they'll tell you everything about it. And they are they are filled with this knowledge. If you talk about painting, they know about painting, right? If you talk about politics, they know about politics. If you talk about history and dates, they know about history and dates. And they know everything because everything is stored in that jack of diamonds, the computer. And these are the people whom normally we take as very wise people, very intelligent people. But they are nothing but tape recorders, right? Can you see? They are nothing but tape recorders. Now, from the jack, we are going to progress to the queen, queen being the emotional part. In the jack, there is a kind of dryness, right? He is not, what do you call, passionate about the information, right? So supposing you ask me who is going to win the election, I'll say this person may win the election. I'm not passionate about it. And I'll give you statistics which are stored in the jack that it looks like these are the statistics and this person will win the election. But if it is the queen, can you understand? We are going to progress to the queen. If it is the queen, she is passionate about it. So she says, hey, this one is definitely going to win the election. Can you get what I'm trying to? So you see this, when you go to debates and all, you suddenly see sometimes people are very passionate about their ideas, very passionate about their gurus, very passionate about spirituality. Can you understand? And you know it is the queen talking, right? In the jack, everything is cut and dried. Cut and dried, right? They can assimilate all information very easily. And that is why because their memory is so good and they can retrieve facts and they can hold a lot of memory, sometimes they really do well in all academic pursuits. They'll get good degrees and stand out first in the degree, etc., etc. But it is all facts which have been fed into a computer. And it's very sad now, because somebody was telling me that now there are classes over here where young children have to repeat the slokas of the Gita and repeat. Can you get what I'm trying to? So you're just feeding things into the jack of diamonds without any understanding of what is happening. Can you get it? Right? And it's very sad. So, comparing, evaluating, making connections, all that the jack does, it takes new information and stores it in a certain way. These are very dry people. Person who is centered in the jack of diamonds, in life they are very dry people. There's no juice in the heart over there, right? So the difference between the jack and the queen is, we can put in one word, is enthusiasm. Enthusiasm. Now we'll just take the three parts of the jack and then go to the queen. What's the time? So in the jack we said which cards will come?
2, 3,
3, 4. 2, 3, 4. So 2 is of course zero attention, right? And this is usually when we read something and there's no registration. No registration. We have to go back to reading it, right? Now, if you observe people, and many times they're in the jack, and especially the 2 of diamonds that is in the jack, is that they say something to you and they may give an example, and after 5-10 minutes they repeat the same example. as if they're oblivious of the fact that they've already said this 5 minutes ago. Now, that is zero attention. We are in the Jack of Diamonds, in the lowest part of the Jack of Diamonds. Now, 3, curiosity, right? Intellectual curiosity. Osho used to divide this, what do you call, intellectual inquiry into 2 parts. The lowest part he would call as curiosity, kutuhal. Kutuhal? What do you he used to call as curiosity, right? And when we move from curiosity to a higher part, then it becomes abhipsa. I want to know, right? I want to know, right? But curiosity is, I'm curious, I'll ask you, where did you get this dress from, right? So it is the card 3. And then after a second, even if you've not answered, I've also forgotten. Can you understand what I'm saying to say? It is here that we have an imagination and opinion of others. We form opinions of others. And these opinions are just based on words. See, as we go deeper in ourselves, we'll come to something called the chief weakness within all of us. And that chief weakness is made up of many parts. Can you tell me which is the major part of that chief weakness, which is used in today's society to the maximum? What is used in today's society to the maximum? Man is suggestible. Suggestible, right? So, which industry uses that? Advertising. Social media also, yeah, advertising. Can you see? He's suggestible. In the old days, there was no advertising or what do you call social media, so we used to say, kacha kanno che, right? Suggestible, right? But now it has expanded into a massive industry, suggestibility. And suggestibility is one of the deepest weaknesses of the human race.
Can you explain suggestibility? Can you explain the term suggestibility?
The guru uses suggestibility, you know that? He plays one disciple against the other. One thing the guru does not like, is that he doesn't like peace in his ashram. Right? He wants everybody fighting in the ashram. Right? So if he sees that there is peace in the ashram and these two are friends in the ashram and there is peace and they are getting into some comfortable zone, right? And spirituality is to get out of your comfortable zone. So the guru will call one of them and he's saying, okay, that person told me that he was speaking to you about you like this, right? And we are suggestible people. My friend speaking about me like this, right? So I become a slave to it and then conflicts start. Can you get it? So I don't go any longer, but in the last 30 years I've been teaching, right? So many gurus used to call me to their ashrams to teach, right? All over India I've been, all the big gurus and all, I don't want to take their names, right? So they call me to lecture and this, and I just observe what the guru is doing, right? And if there's peace and happiness in the ashram, I know something is wrong. So man's deepest weakness is his suggestibility, right? And what do you call, if the Jack of Diamonds, when it says something, if we are suggestible, we just latch onto it immediately. Right? And that comes in the 3 of Diamonds, the 3 of Diamonds. Now, many times we use a phrase right? I did not mean it. I'm sorry. What are we doing in that?
Justifying.
Justifying a mechanical
Habit.
action, a mechanical habit. We are not willing to work upon the habit, look at the habit, right? We are just covering it with a, so that again becomes in the three of diamonds, three of diamonds. Now the four of diamonds, that is the jack, the most obvious, this thing is, of course, now we have counting machines in the bank, but in the old days, the tellers had to count money. And they counted money very fast, but they had to bring in some kind of attention. So even though the counting of money was very fast, they would bring in some kind of attention, right? Otherwise they could make a mistake in their counting. And a person who has risen to this level, even in the jack, he will not immediately blurt out something in a reaction. He'll try to bring some relativity to the situation. In another way, the four of diamonds, that is the higher part of the jack of diamonds, is what we call as street smart people. Street smart people. And in the Mahabharata, we have one character who is very street smart. Who is that? Street smart. Vidur.
Oh, yeah.
Vidur. Can you see?
Yeah.
He's very street smart. So this card in him is a very powerful card in Vidur, right? And they can manipulate words, they can manipulate language. And one of the beautiful parts in the Mahabharata is when Yudhishthir and the brothers are going to the, the palace of wax. And at that time, he tells them in Mlech Bhasha, which nobody else could understand. Only Yudhishthir and he understood what he was saying, that you be careful, this is what is going to happen. That was street smartness there. Yeah. Many times you go on a, conducted tour or a family tour of places, right? And there's one person in the whole group, who knows how to do everything, arrange the hotel bookings, talk to the taxi driver. Can you get what I'm trying to say? And these are street smart people, street smart people. Right? So, they are in this card, the four of diamonds, right? You take the queen of diamonds. So if we are reading and we don't grasp anything, we are reading with the jack, right? So then we have to go back and read with the queen, with interest. Huh? The queen is interest. The queen is love, passion, right? So within all of us, if there is a search for knowledge, right? A search for knowledge, search for the truth of life, then this card is active within us, the Queen of Diamonds, right? It is she who is looking for that. But the Jack is satisfied in the dry accumulation of facts. He never wants to go from the fact to the truth. So she represents all our intellectual pursuits in life. All our intellectual pursuits in life. Now in the Queen, what did we say about attention? Attracted. It is held by the object. It is held by attracted attention in the Queen. But queens are very, they're not reliable people. They can move from active interest to zero interest. Active interest to zero interest. So it can swing from very active interest to complete boredom. And you see it in a lot of youngsters today, right? 6 months they'll take one course and they'll say, I'm bored in this course. Let's go to another course. So this is not ordinary curiosity in the Queen. She has this thirst for knowledge. But with the Queen also comes that The minute the excitement of the knowledge goes away, she will drop it and go to something else. Now, this Queen of Diamonds, the what do you call emotional part of the what do you call intellectual center, how do we observe it? How do we observe it? Supposing I come into this home, now it's the intellectual center, right? So I come into this home, where will my attention first go? Where will my attention first go?
To the things in the home?
No, intellectual is knowledge,
Oh,
books.
oh, that's right.
Can you understand what I'm trying to say? So I enter into somebody's home, and what do I look at first?
Yeah, okay.
Can you
It
see?
attracts my
Right.
attention.
Now, if I'm looking at the flower arrangement and then the queen is not active. But if immediately I start looking at the books and what this person is reading, then the Queen of Diamonds is. But if I look at the flower arrangement later on, we go tomorrow into the Queen of Hearts. Can you understand what I'm trying to say? Right? So as we are looking at where does my attention go? Automatically, and it automatically will go to books, because the Queen is the search for knowledge. But again, she can swing from a very deep interest to boredom, complete boredom. So we see a book, we buy a book, come home, put it on the shelf, but somehow after some time we have no urge to read it, and it lies over there. Now, if you go to people's homes, and in the old days, when the printing was not of today's quality, and you go to their homes and you open a book, and you'll say 3-4 pages are separate, then you'll see some pages are pasted together. Can you see? So you have to cut open those pages. That means they have not progressed from reading from 3-4 pages, right? So you know this person is centered in the Queen of Diamonds. Can you understand? So the book has to hold our attention. If I have to make an effort to read the book, then the Queen is not interested. That goes to the king, where directed attention comes. So here, see, especially when we are dealing with children, right? Because at a certain age, children have to decide which subjects they take, right? And the decisions should come from the king. But always they decide from the queen. They always decide from the queen. So as parents, we have to see that they are deciding from the king and not from the queen. Otherwise, what will happen? After some time, they'll get bored of the subject. Now we take suggestibility. Simple suggestibility that I'm talking about many years ago when I was very young. I must have been 10, 11 years old, right? And somebody says, why don't you learn the sitar? So I decided to learn the sitar, right? So now there's this queen which wants to learn sitar. Of course, this is the Queen of Hearts, not the Queen of Diamonds. And fortunately, I got a very good guru who was very famous also. And he would, very nice guy, he would come, and I had this habit of sleeping in the afternoon. He would wake me up and make me sit down on the... But after 6 months, I just gave it up. Can you get? Because after 6 months, then the king has to come in. And we have to make that dedication where, and the queen finds it difficult to make that dedication. She can't go deep into the subject. The subject has to hold her. She cannot go deep into the subject. Can you understand? Right? So this is very important in when we ask our children to decide which subject they should take. Right? She's not interested in going into the details of anything, right? And this is especially in research oriented, what you call, parts of life, where we take up a research oriented, what you call, profession, because for some time it will hold our interest. Then we have to go deep into the subject and make an effort. She is emotional about information, right? So if she says this person should win the presidency, right, she is very emotional and she will argue, in that way, not a cut and dried argument. She's emotional about ideas, right? And these are very passionate people, the Queen. They can pour themselves into a subject and then suddenly leave the subject completely. Many times you see people who they want to change the world, right? So, like I've been talking for more than 30 years now, and you meet all kinds of people, right? And because I teach these exercises and all that, so people come to me, and these are big people, Jain gurus, and big people, very famous people, and they say, "What are you doing? You have to teach this to everyone." Can you understand? I'm a small person. I'm not interested in teaching it to everybody, right? I just want to go everywhere and share it with people, whoever come, right? No advertising, nothing, right? But these queens, they have a passion that you can't keep this to yourself. You have to teach the whole world and all things like that. So these are people who you love to observe. You love to observe because they're so passionate about life. They live life with deep passion for living. They live life. But they keep on swinging. Now, because of their passion for knowledge, they get a lot of friends. Because when you're in the company of the Queen, her passion falls about and you suddenly feel alive again, as if you're young again, and she's so passionate about life that it sort of gathers onto us, it spreads onto us. So we feel our own intellectual function is stimulated. See, when we go into college, right, and I'm talking about 1973 when I went into college. So, college, you want to make a girlfriend in college, right? So, somebody, how do you make a girlfriend? How do you make a girlfriend? So, they say you have to talk about the 3 F's. The 3 F's. So, when you meet a girl, you talk about food. And because every girl is going to become a woman and feed their children, so they are food. And so it hits them deep inside and they love to talk to you, right? And then you talk about family. You talk about family and they love to talk about family. And the third thing they would say, talk about philosophy, because they won't understand anything but see that you are very intelligent, right? So, the queens, they are these 3 F's kind of people. They are interested, passionate about food, family, philosophy, right? And you'll see sometimes people are discussing, when you observe people, they are discussing. And they discuss the whole night. I don't know if you've seen these, I've seen these kind of, and they discuss the whole night, right? And and each one is putting in his arguments with so much of passion, so much of aggressiveness. These are the queens. One of my gurus was Swami Ramdulare Bapu, where I stayed with him for 7 years. Now, he used to go all over the country cycle yatra and pad yatra, and that was his thing. And he used to come to one person's place every year and spend a week over there, and he would play with the children and make toys for the children. Now, that person in those days had arranged what is called the Gujarat Sahitya Sammelan. The Gujarat Sahitya Sammelan. So all the, what you call, literature people from Gujarat, they gathered, and he was the vice president of the society, the Gujarat thing. They gathered. And then they're sitting in the night, and somebody comes up with a question. The question was from the Upanishads, right? The story of Shvetketu and Udalak. You know the story of Shvetketu and Udalak. So Udalak is asking Shvetketu that, did you learn from your guru that one thing which, knowing which there is no need to know anything else? And Shvetketu says, I have not learned that. He says, go back to your guru. You've not learned anything, right? So they say, what is that one thing knowing which there is no need to know anything else? And they're arguing throughout the night, the whole top literature people of Gujarat. And this person throughout the night is sitting there making toys for the children, cutting paper and all that. And in the morning, as morning comes, they all say, we've not come to an answer to this one question, that knowing this one thing, you know everything else in life. There's no need to know anything else in life. And then Ramdulare Bapu says, Swabhav. If you know yourself, you know everything, right? So this, and then that person realized, this person has been coming to my house for so many years, right? And I never paid attention to him, right? And somehow I lived with him for 7 years, right? And whatever I am today is because of him. He trained me. And so what, this is, that it's a different kind of intelligence, a different kind of intelligence. So people, they argue throughout. These are the Queens, and they passionately argue. But they are not suited for deep research. They are not suited for deep research. But they are very good in instigating excitement in other people, right? So you may not want to see a movie, but they'll instigate excitement in such a way that now you'll say, I want to go to see that movie. But there is no consistency in the Queen. We'll just go through the 3 cards, 5, 6 and 7. So in 5, there is a possessiveness about books, right? Have you returned my book? Right? There is a possessiveness about books. There is a desire to repeat experience. Can you understand? Now, supposing I have read a book and you take that book, right? Now, why do I want that book back? Can you understand? I'm never going to have the time to read it again, right? But somehow I feel if the book is there, I can repeat the experience of reading it. Okay? There's a desire to acquire more books, These people love to display their books. So if you go to their homes, and the books are all displayed over there, this thing. Recently I was at dinner at someone's house, just before coming here. And she was the former Chief Justice of Gujarat. And the books are displayed. So I said, get rid of these books and put crystals in their place. Right. So we like to display the books which we have, right? Sometimes we feel like reading the same novel again and again. And I've seen many times, supposing I'm free and I want to watch a, serial, then sometimes if I don't find the serial, I'll repeat something which I've already seed. And this is the 5 of diamonds, the 5 of diamonds. So if we've had a wonderful experience, right, we want to repeat that experience, and that is the 5 of diamonds. And we forget what Heraclitus said. You can't step into the same water twice, right? Somebody else's experience, one experience can never come again because the water has flown from there. The water has gone away from there, flowed from there. Now in the next card, the 6 of diamonds, that is the emotional part of the intellectual center. Loves to read, there is a passion about reading, and sometimes these people, when they are reading, they lose complete what you call sense of time. They lose complete sense of time. They are so involved in their reading that they lose complete sense of time. There's a lot of joy in reading, a lot of gratification in reading. Attention is held by what he is reading. He is not directing his attention. And many times such people, they can read anything, right? You give them anything and they'll read through it, right? And they don't have to make that extra effort to read through it. But in the 7 of diamonds, there'll be a little bit of control. You'll make a choice of what to read and what not to read. There'll be this, what you call, inner desire to try out new authors, try out new things. There's a desire to, relate stories from one culture to another culture. So like we can take the Mahabharata is from one culture, but the Iliad and Odyssey are from another. And suddenly you relate the characters in the two and you find the similarities, and they find a lot of joy in doing that. So in 5 and 6 we want to have the same experience, but in 7 we want to have a new experience. Now, what is the difference between intelligence and intellect? What is the difference between intelligence and intellect?
In intelligence, it's like book knowledge. In intellect, it's book knowledge. You know what to do, but it doesn't penetrate into your actions.
Yeah, but this is on the knowledge part of it. Just in our attitude. How will you differentiate?
Intellect is I know everything, not willing to learn new things. Intelligence is always curious, wanting to.
That is one thing, but can you put it in a different way? See, let's just take a bird. Let's take a bird, right? So the bird is building a nest, right? And it builds the nest beautifully, right? Some of the birds, so artistically the nest is built, right? Now, you take out some part of the nest, what happens?
You'll build it all over again.
You'll build it all over again. What is it lacking?
Intelligence.
Yeah, but what is intelligence?
Adaptability.
It cannot adapt to the situation. Can you understand? Right? An animal and a plant cannot adapt to the situation. Right? They will only do what is pre-programmed. You get what it is? Now, a human being, if he is intelligence, the sign of intelligence is adaptability, and if he is only using his intellect, the sign of that is obstinacy. Can you get what I'm trying to say? Now, which is the perfect example of adaptability? The perfect in the Hindu Shastra. in the Hindu Shastra, what is the perfect example of adaptability?
Krishna.
Krishna. You see, he did not follow any path. In this present moment, what was needed was the path. So, to each moment of life, he adapted. Can you understand? Right? If the present moment, what do you call, needed that you speak a lie, then you speak a lie. Can you understand? So there was no morality over there in the present moment. No, the rules of morality also fell down in his adaptation to the present moment, right? If it is needed to kill somebody in the wrong way, but it is needed, then you adapt to the present moment. So Krishna, each moment of his life, there was no particular, he just adapted to the present moment. Of course, it's not so easy, because when we read the Bhagavad, 2 days before he's supposed to go to Mathura, and Akrur was going to come to take him to Mathura. And Narad comes to him, right? And Narad tells him that these are the events of your life from now. And he tells him every event of his life, right? And Krishna was not allowed to have any other event in his life. Can you understand? His destiny was fixed. That you go from this event to this event to this event, and Narad repeats everything to him. But, like I said, Ram Dulare Bapu was my, guru. And he had a saying, सब कुछ नियोजित है फिर भी उसका आयोजन करना पड़ता है. Right? So the events of life were destined for Krishna, but he had to do ayojan in each event of life to make it happen, right? And that was his adaptability. So intelligence is the power to adapt to any situation in life, right? That is intelligence, right? But
So with adaptability comes a playfulness also? Because you're adaptable, you can play a little bit, correct? When you're obstinate, it's either this way or that way. But when you're adaptable, you can also enjoy a little bit more. Yeah?
so with adaptability and consciousness comes playfulness, right? So, and the prime example of playfulness is? The prime example of playfulness is? Ram. Ramayate iti Ramam. The one who has come to play. Right? The one who has come to play. Right? So the whole Ramayana is a play. It is called Ram Leela. It is a play. The one who has come to play. Right? So we have that famous story in the Ramayana where Parvati tells Shiva that this guy is mad. He's shouting in the jungle, Sita, Sita, and somebody has taken Sita away. And he's shouting, he knows that Sita is not over here, right? So Shiva tells Parvati, you go and test him. So she comes in the form of Sita. And he looks at her, he bows down to her. Then he goes on his way again, Sita. So the one who is willing to play in all the suffering of life. So it is not just to play in the happiness of life. The one who has learned to play in every suffering, in every up and down of life, that playfulness, that adaptability, that is there. Okay, now we'll just go to the final one. Now we have 15 more minutes. So the King of Diamonds is the intellectual part of the intellectual center. And what is the basic quality in the king is that we have to direct our attention. In the jack there is zero attention. In the queen there is attracted attention. In the king there is directed attention. So this is the part where did we use this part the most in our life?
Studying.
Studying in school. When we studied for exams, we use this part. But later on in life, we hardly use this part, right? And it sort of degenerates, right? Now, reading with the Jack and reading with the King, what could be the difference? New information is coming in, I am reading new information, right? What would be the difference?
King.
The Jack is just recording everything. The Jack is just recording everything. The King is seeing what was there previously and integrating the new with the old and making something new out of it, right? So integrating the new with the old. And this is the process of real thinking. Not recording everything, but real thinking. It's very difficult in life to find a person who thinks. Very difficult in life. All you meet are jacks, right? So the king takes in new things and connects them with the old knowledge which he has. But there's a deep connection with the queen with what information he is willing to take in and what information he will reject completely. Very steady card, the king of diamonds, a very steady. These are very steady people in life. And very few people use the higher part of the intellectual center. Why don't they use it? Why don't they use it?
Takes effort.
Because you have to
Direct our attention.
pay
Attention.
attention. So if I have to pay attention in a book, after some time I can't pay attention. I want to see a movie or something which holds my attention. I don't want to make the effort to pay attention, right? And that is very important, very important. So usually this comes with boredom, and many people, they come to me and I just laugh it out. And they say, what you're talking is all intellectual, it has nothing. I want to follow the path of bhakti. And I know it is just the intellectual laziness. They're never going to follow the path of bhakti because they're going to think about bhakti all the time, right? So, and in today's age, it is impossible to follow the path of bhakti. It is, right? So, but they come and they say, and they don't want to, awaken the hidden parts of their mind. They don't want to make that effort to awaken the hidden parts of the mind, right? And I just laugh it out, right? But in the end, they want to put you down. What you're doing is just intellectual pursuit, right? We are, in truth, there is no intellectual this thing. All the gurus say, throw away the books, right? You throw away the books after you have experienced, right? So it is very rare to find a person who directs his attention into knowledge and finds satisfaction from that. If the knowledge holds my attention and I find satisfaction, I'm in the queen. Okay? Now, even where I'm reading a novel and the novel is holding my attention, I'm watching a serial which is holding my attention. But supposing in between the serial, I want to say that these 5 people, who is the murderer out of these 5 people? Then I have to bring in the king. I have to bring in the king. If I want to make that effort before the serial is over to say that this guy has done the crime, right? Then I have to make that effort. Now, later we'll come to the instinct center, but I'll just talk about it a little now. When we sit down to study any subject, what happens? When we sit down to study any subject, if we've observed ourselves, what happens?
You want to take a break.
You want to take a break. The instinctive center feels this is a waste of time, right? So the instinctive center will make you yawn, right? So You're studying something for 10 minutes, suddenly you'll start yawning. The instinctive center will go make a cup of tea, right? So suddenly the instinctive center will come in and we'll give up the task and maybe sit down and watch TV or something. You understand what I'm trying to say? And it's very difficult. It's very difficult to overcome that. So I make a rule that if I'm studying anything, then for 40 minutes I won't get up. For 40 minutes I won't get up. Mr. Tavaria, he gave some talks on Chitti. And those talks were taken from sutras which have come from Kashmir Shaivism. So then a small book on his talks was printed on those Chitti Sutras. Now I'm planning to open out those sutras and go into them. Can you see? Right? Now, to other people it may seem a waste of time, right? But you have to sit down and you have to repeat each sutra, go into the different shades of meaning, and then you try to open out. So it requires a lot of effort when you're going into this. Right? So at that time the moving center will say, let's go for a walk. The instinctive center will say, let's have a cup of tea, right? And the queen will say, let's watch TV, right? And that is where will comes in, where we will our attention into the subject we are studying. See, one of my passions is the Mahabharata, right? And I'm talking about 14 years ago. Now in the Mahabharata, one of the most fascinating stories in the Mahabharata is the story of Nala and Damayanti. All of you all have heard of the story of Nala and Damayanti, right? Beautiful story. It's a life-changing story. So, 14 years ago, I was here in the US, and one friend called me for lunch in New York. And his mother had come from India at that time, and she was staying with him. And she was my library teacher when I joined school, right? So she sees me and says, what are you doing with your life? So when I joined school, the first period was a library period. And she was teaching the story of Nala and Damayanti to us youngsters, right? So I said, 45 years ago you taught me Nala and Damayanti, I'm still studying Nala and Damayanti. So, and it's still so fascinating, so much, even if you still go into the story. In that story of Nala and Damayanti, in the Mahabharata, I'm digressing from this, there are different stutis. And many people come to you, they've done bad in business and they're in financial problem and all that. And one of the stutis is by one of the devas, his name is Kali. And he's the person who has brought all the suffering in Nala's life. And he's hidden in a tree. All this is symbolic. He's hidden in a tree, and it is a Behda tree. And the way to get him out of the tree is if you can count the leaves of the tree. And Nala has now just learned the science of counting the leaves in a tree, how to count the leaves. And so he gives the exact number, so he has to come out. And then he bows down to Nala. He's a deva, and he bows down to Nala and he says, I'm sorry I put you through so much of suffering. But he says, then he looks at the tree and he says, you have given me what you call place to stay. And then he gives a stuti. Now these stutis which come in the Mahabharata, they're very high stutis, some of them. And he says, if a person on this day at this time cuts a root of your tree and puts it in his safe deposit, that safe deposit vault will never be empty. Can you get what I'm trying to say? So that if somebody comes by, I'm in a financial problem, I'm in this, then I tell them that do this on this day. Can you see that? Right? So that is from the story of Nala and Damayanti anyway. But now, the King of Diamonds is the slowest of all the functions. Thinking is the slowest. It is much slower than feeling, and much slower than moving, and much slower than even instinctive. Okay, instinctive functions are super fast. And to really think is a very laborious thing. You have to use your will to really think. So in the Jack, there are quick and easy answers. But the king does not have an answer, right? He does not, right? Because the basic thing in the king is that I don't know anything. How can I answer to you? The basic thing in the king is I. So the Jack of Diamond quickly gives the answer, decides that this is right and this is wrong. The king applies relativity, right, to the situation. He applies scale to the situation. He understands it from all different angles. And then he puts it in different ways in front of you, and you have to make the decision. Usually these people in life are very quiet people. They hardly talk. And that is why to most people they look like very stupid people also. So this is a great irony that the real part of the intellectual center which really thinks, we look at it as stupid, and the one which gives fast answers from memory, we look at it as intelligent. But it's very rare, rare in life to find a person who is in the King of Diamonds. Very rare. Now, in many situations in life, the automatic mechanical response is necessary, right? Do I have bread or oatmeal for breakfast? Then the king is not needed to answer this. The Jack of Diamonds answers this, right? So there must be right use of the Jack. And the Jack of Diamonds must compare, put everything together and present it to the king for the decision. The decision should come from the king. Okay, I just take this in some old-fashioned way. We have the mind is an inner instrument. The mind is now this is a modern way of looking at it. The mind is an inner instrument, this modern way of looking. Let's look at it in an old-fashioned way. So we'll say the inner instrument is composed of 4 parts: Man, Buddhi, Chit and Ahankar. Right? This is the same thing what we are talking about. Right? So the inner instrument is composed of 4 parts: Man, Buddhi, Chit and Ahankar. Now, in Sanskrit, the definition of Chitta is very difficult. Because Chitta also means attention, Chitta also means mind, Chitta also means memory. Can you understand? It's very difficult to put a definition on Chitta. Now we'll just see how these work, right? So we go to a shop, and the shop is selling sweets, beautiful sweets. So the manas is the one which controls the organs of action. So attention goes out of the eyes, looks at the sweets, brings the picture inside, and the manas makes that picture, divides it, and there's a big process which goes on. We won't go into that. And it presents it to something called the ahankar. It presents it to something called the ahankar. That is the ego inside. And that is the, what you call, real function of the ego. And the ego attaches a label like or dislike. Can you see? Ego is the emotional center. It attaches a like or dislike label to it. And then it presents it to something inside called the buddhi. And the buddhi will say, if you eat this, you're going to get diabetes. So forget it, put it back. So the ego takes it back, gives it to the manas and tells the manas. Now the manas operates the Gyan Indriyas and the Karma Indriyas. So the manas will tell the hand, put that sweetmeat back on the shelf, you're not supposed to buy it. Right? This is the inner process. The next day we go again into the sweet shop. Right? And take the sweet, the manas presents it to the ego. Right? And then the ego attaches a label, I like it. And then there's the memory of putting it back yesterday, and that is called chitta. So before it goes to the buddhi, the chitta intervenes and says, last time you took it to that guy upstairs, right? He said no, don't go to him, right? Let us both decide. You go back, buy that sweet and eat it at home. Can you understand? Right. So this is how the inner instruments work. And once this happens in man's life, he spends his whole life without the use of buddhi. Can you understand? What is the buddhi? The four kings.
Yeah.
Can you get it? What we are talking about, buddhi is nothing but the four kings. How to ignite the buddhi, right? So we say the Gayatri mantra. Yaha naha dhiyo prachodayat. Right? Amari buddhi ne prerna apo. Right? What we are saying in the Gayatri. Please awaken my buddhi. It has been in darkness all these years. Right? So, when we are talking about the king, we are talking about the highest part of the mind, the buddhi. Right? And when we are talking about Jack, we are talking about the manas. The manas. But in Indian terminology, all four jacks become one. Right? And when we are talking of queens, we are talking of the aham. All the four queens become one. Right? But we have divided them into, and just to see how it goes. So in the king, we want to understand everything about the situation, about the subject. We want to understand how it relates to everything else. We want to understand the connection of the ideas and what is the right way of expressing those ideas, right? But if the queen is very active, there's so much of passion, enthusiasm, we just blurt out something to the other person. And usually the queen and jack control our lives. We have an answer for everything and we just give it out. We don't bring the king into the picture. It is yoga, chitta, vritti, nirodha. That chitta and the aham, they control everything, and that is how it goes. So the right way for the intellectual center to work is that the jack of diamonds works in the service of the king of diamonds. He does not give answers immediately. We'll just go through the cards. So all these are higher states of attention, directed attention, whether 8, 9 and 10. In 8, when we are reading a book, but we find we have not understood it properly. We have not understood it properly. So you have to reread and reread, right? So when we reread it, we may find new meaning or something in the book. Now when it finds new meaning, it will attach that new meaning to the old meaning which it had and make something creative out of it, something new out of it. Now, when I originally read something, what was the state of my mind?
Receptive.
Right. So very important. Supposing I had a fight with my wife, right, and then I go down to start reading the Gita, then I'm reading it from the wrong state. I'm reading it from the wrong state. So whenever we are reading something, from which state are we reading it? And the king will ask this question. You're in the wrong state. You don't read at this time. right? Now in the 9 there is value, right? Now usually in life we are attracted to something through excitement. Very rarely we are attracted to something through value, right? And value means it performs a certain function for me. It has a certain place in my emotional center, right? So there can be love through attraction and there can be love through value. I value that person, right? And that is why I love that person. But I'm attracted to that person and that is why I love. Both are different. And for this to reach a state of value in life, we must be free of excitement. As long as excitement catches us and controls us, we don't have value for anything. In the King of Diamonds, that is card 9, for the first time, there's a value for knowledge of the truth, and how the truth operates, through what laws the truth operates, there's that. And in the final card 10, we see the interrelatedness of everything. There's a beautiful poem that when you pick a flower over here, the distant star is crying, right? So, the interrelatedness of everything. Some poets, they suddenly see the interrelatedness of, like yesterday we talked about avidya. But if we go through avidya, suddenly we see that you and I are not separate. Everything is interrelated. At a certain time in our journey, we can see the interrelatedness of time. I'll just touch upon this before closing. Oh, we've finished our time, right? One woman, her young son died in a car accident. So she comes, is there any way I can help that child who is gone? So I said, in time everything is interrelated. Our paths of time have crossed. Can you understand? So between you and me there is a connection. Tomorrow if I rise in a state of consciousness, all those paths which are connected to my path will have some feeling of that, because everything is interrelated. Can you see? If I mature into a higher state of consciousness. So I said, the best way for you to help him is to rise in consciousness. If you rise wherever he is, because your paths have crossed, it will help him. And so in the card 10, we see the interrelatedness of everything. And that is where life changes completely. Then it is not, he has taken my money, who can take away my money, because it is always my money. Right? Can you understand? And in that interrelatedness of everything we see. And we suddenly see that everything happens according to a law. You sow the seed, you reap the fruit, right? So the whole idea is how to come to a state where we live without sowing any seeds, without seeing any seeds. And that question comes up in the King of Diamonds. I'll stop over here. We've done our time already, but any questions you want, we can sit for 5 minutes more if you want, right?
Rajma, you explained the old terminology of the mind. So where do the chakras play into the centers? Do they play in?
The chakras.
Because that would be old terminology. So then what would the new terminology be to understand that?
So we can't change the terminology in the sense of the chakras.
Okay.
Okay? Because the chakras are a certain truth which we can't deny.
Okay.
We may say that I can't see the chakras, I can't feel the chakras, right? So there are no chakras. It is just a chakra, right? But that's not true. Now, the chakras are a part of the manas.
Okay.
You see, if you want a proper explanation, I'll need time. So if you come tomorrow, then we can sit for half an hour. I'll explain what the chakras are doing, what is the basic this thing. Then we'll go into the next card. Because I didn't know we have 6 days, so we have time.
Okay.
So I'll first take the chakras and I'll explain to you what they are doing. I won't go deep into each chakra, but because we'll take the chakras, I'll teach you the sound of the Swadhisthana chakra, right? And that is very important in life to use that sound, right? So I'll teach that to you tomorrow, right? So we'll just take a general view of the chakras, right? But they are part of the manas. They are part of the manas. So we said man, buddhi, chit, ahankar, manas, chakras are a part of the manas.
And then, so you said man is Jack, the king is Buddhi, and Ahankar is the queen. So Chitta,
Chitta is the memory.
just, okay,
So
perfect.
the memory stored in the jack is chitta.
So sanskars will be part of Chitta.
Chitta.
Okay.
Sanskars are a part of chitta. Both are made out of electromagnetic, what do you call? Particles.
Yeah.
Electromagnetic particles. We'll stop over here, right? Thank you. You're going to